A federal judge in Louisiana today blocked a state law requiring the display of the Ten Commandments in every public school classroom. The legislation, which was passed by state lawmakers this year, has been closely watched since Louisiana is the first state to enact this kind of mandate in more than 40 years. The decision was a setback for supporters of the measure, but not an unexpected one. Proponents of the measure have braced themselves for backlash and, in many ways, have invited a lengthy legal fight as part of a larger effort by conservative Christian groups to amplify public expressions of faith. And Donald Trump is starting to fill out his cabinet with loyal defenders. The president-elect's picks include two Republicans from New York who fought for him during his first impeachment, including Elise Stefanik, who he says will be his UN ambassador. He is also expected to nominate Senator Marco Rubio of Florida for Secretary of State. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been unflinching in his attacks on the Food and Drug Administration in recent weeks, saying he wants to fire agency experts who have taken action against treatments that have sometimes harmed people or that teeter on the fringe of accepted healthcare practice. Now, how much influence Kennedy will have in President-elect Trump's next administration remains unclear, with some suggestion that he could act as a White House czar for policy over several federal health agencies. Trump has voiced support for Kennedy in recent weeks, saying he will let him go wild on health. In his acceptance speech, Trump reiterated his support for Kennedy's involvement on health matters. And some of President-elect Trump closest allies are privately counseling him to try to block a one-time Republican nemesis from becoming the Senate Majority Leader, pushing him to impose his will more forcefully on an already compliant GOP Congress. Those advisors believe Trump should stop Senator John Thune of South Dakota, the number 2 Republican, from winning the top post. And to many left-leaning Americans, it is resoundingly clear that women who backed Donald Trump in the presidential election voted against their own self-interest. Yes, liberal women in particular have spent recent days practically stewing over how other women could have rejected Kamala Harris, who would have been the first woman to lead the nation in its nearly 250-year history. Instead, they chose a candidate who spews misogyny seemingly with glee, not once, but for a second time. But women themselves clearly were divided in this election. Exit polls show that 45% of all females voted for Donald Trump, and that number was far greater for white women. The compounding rejection of Hillary Clinton, then Kamala Harris, has exposed an uncomfortable but steady undercurrent of American society. Women do not necessarily agree on what counts as progress or a setback. And after Vice President Harris's defeat to Donald Trump, Democrats are asking the question, who will lead the party and in what direction? And this is going to be a hotly debated topic as officials explore what went wrong and as they try to forge plans to oppose the next Trump administration. Jockeying has already begun, and not all ambition may be rewarded. Appearing too eager to seize the opportunity presented by Ms. Harris's defeat could backfire if Democrats are not ready to move forward. But if, after 2016, that election is any guide, scores of Democratic figures and groups will try to fill the leadership void created as Joe Biden leaves office. And some good news for Democrats. Ruben Gallego, the Democratic congressman running to replace retiring Senator Kristen Sinema in Arizona, has been projected the winner by the AP. He beat Republican Kari Lake in a battleground state that President-elect Donald Trump won easily. Gallego had a lead over Kari Lake, a former news anchor and staunch ally of Trump, with more than 94% of the vote counted late Monday. The Republicans are set to take the majority in the Senate with 53 seats to Democrats' 47. And the Supreme Court today rejected a request by Donald Trump's former White House chief of staff to transfer his state case to federal court. This is the state election interference case brought against Mark Meadows and others. Meadows has asked the justices to overturn a lower court ruling rejecting his claims that the case should be moved out of state court because his actions were tied to his official federal duties during the Trump presidential term. This is the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in Real Time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. This is hour 2 of Areva Martin in Real Time, and this is the hour where we go a little deeper. We dig behind those headlines and bring you stories that people are talking about. Well, we've been talking a whole lot about politics, and for a good reason. We're going to continue to talk about Trump and how he's rolling out his new administration and Democrats as they seek to rebuild their party and they seek to identify the leaders that will lead them in the midterm elections that will be coming up in 2 years and the next presidential election. Well, we're going to take a little break from the news of politics today. We're going to talk about sports. We're going to talk about culture. A former professional basketball player, Jasmine Maeta, is going to join us. Jasmine turned entrepreneur and has had some pretty big jobs with some really big sports brands and other brand companies, brands that you will recognize. But she is now out on her own. She has started a sports lifestyle brand that she says amplifies expression and connection for sports fans everywhere. Going to be talking to Jasmine and the work that she does with underrepresented artists to bridge the gap between culture and the commercialization that she says is pretty apparent in the world of sports. So when we come forward, Jasmine talks about her career as a former basketball player and what she's doing now as an entrepreneur. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
The following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways for the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a complimentary stay in Cancun at a luxury resort, then Family Vacation Getaways may have your ticket to paradise. We're giving away a 5-day and 4-night stay to the first qualified 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You may also be eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $398. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and you may be eligible to get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $398. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431. Again, call 800-868-6431 and give us your answer.
This is a story of the one. As a maintenance specialist for university housing, he knows college students can major in wear and tear. Plus, housing so many students doesn't leave a lot of room to house all the supplies he needs. That's where Grainger comes in. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast, dependable delivery, Grainger carries the quality products he needs so he doesn't have to. From a new door hinge to a whole new faucet. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
We are back, and in this hour, Jasmine Maeta is joining us. She is a former professional basketball player turned entrepreneur, and she's out with a new sports lifestyle brand. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for joining us in this hour. Talk about your career. I mean, you've had an exciting career as a professional basketball player, then you've worked at some major corporations, that have obviously have their fingers on the pulse of what's happening around the sports world as well as pop culture. So talk a little about your beginnings as a basketball player.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a ride. I started as an athlete and I still feel like I am. I played basketball growing up in small town Oklahoma and went on to play collegiately and then professionally overseas in Spain, and recognized the power of sport, then early in my career, to continue to drive people together, which was really an important value I had always had in my personal life, and really wanted to go out and build a career where I could be close to sport or points of sweat, and was able to do that. I spent my first few years as a coach, a very natural transition from playing to leading marketing at Reebok, right as Adidas had acquired them, which was a great understanding of kind of brand segmentation, and two brands that used to compete now being one. And then went to Hasbro right as the iPhone came out, which is, for other generations, unreal to think about. But they wanted to translate the games that they had, Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit, to the digital first generation. And so that was a great experience that made me understand I love sports, and went back to it at Under Armour, where I led marketing for 6 years, the men's training business, running and connected footwear, and then spent time at Peloton as VP of Global Brand. And so always around sports culture, points of sweat, really understanding the power that sports has to bring people together, but actually recognize that as an industry, it defaults to the uniform. As much as it celebrates bringing people together, it defaults to all of us being the same. And I personally wanting to celebrate the differences, and saw that as an opportunity, which led me to start my own platform around sports and inclusivity and identity, which is Round 21.
So what exactly does your platform do, or how does it speak to sports fans?
Yeah, so we are a culture-driven product platform for sports, and every word there is intentional. We have a business model that empowers and prioritizes the people who play and the people who celebrate every play on the court. Those are the fans. The industry traditionally prioritizes the team or the league, and we've flipped that on its head. And in partnership with independent artists, and in partnership with sports teams, leagues, and athletes, we bridge those two parts of the sports culture and bring new ideas and empower messages that are happening in society through the lens of sports. So that when a fan goes to a New York Liberty game or to an Oklahoma City Thunder game, they can say something about who they are through their passion for sports. They don't have to just conform to the identity of the team.
So we know that sports figures like Magic Johnson and others played a real big role in this last presidential election. We saw many of them. I think Kamala Harris had a Athletes for Harris. She did a whole rollout with athletes from all kinds of different sports teams that were out talking to young voters, in particular, talking to sports fans. We know that Donald Trump ran a lot of transgender ads, demeaning transgender people during major games. So like during, primetime games on weekends and throughout the week. I think this ad saying that Kamala Harris agreed with transgender surgery being provided to individuals in the military was played tens of thousands of times. And some people point to that ad as one of the reasons that they didn't vote for Kamala Harris. What do you make about how sports and games and major sports figures have been so central in politics, in particular in this election?
Yeah, so sports has always been a platform to spread messages. And this goes back in my personal experience back to, Muhammad Ali and his perspective on societal views and views around political decisions, and using his platform to make everybody know where he stood. fast forward to today, sports is one of the very, very few tune-in moments left in media, as everybody's cutting cords, and there are so many other ways to consume different forms and formats of media. Sports, because of its live base and its, frankly, you just never know what's going to happen. Character continues to drive that tune-in value. And so it's a platform on steroids relative to where it used to be. And, in addition, every team, player, owner is encouraged to or expected to use their platform, their microphone, to express how they feel about what's happening in the world.
Well, let me ask you, some players we heard say, no, I don't do politics, I don't get into politics, whereas we saw others, some wearing MAGA hats during press conferences, and like I said, others like Magic Johnson and others speaking out and showing up in support of Kamala Harris at rallies. So you think, what are your thoughts on that, on players taking a position for or against a candidate?
Yeah, I think that they have the right to. They're citizens first. We actually, when I was at Peloton, the Peloton instructors, while I was at Peloton, had an election while we were there. And we talked a lot about that and how players, even employees, they are citizens first, and they have the right to do that. I think the landscape this election, which very clearly represented geography perspectives on Trump versus Harris, sports teams and owners are often aligned to a political party, whether or not they're voicing it or not, just simply because of the fan base that they sit in. The fans sometimes amplify that. The reality is, when you see things like the WNBA players rallying, and the election that impacted Warnock, and how players, even with Round 21 as a startup, chose our vote T, which was symbolic around how many women didn't vote in the last election, and how women in particular with the 19th Amendment and so much of the empowerment of the WNBA should feel responsible for using their voice. Athletes did choose what we were saying through our product platform to represent the importance of voting. And that microphone is available to athletes. And I think even after the election, via social media, athletes were getting kind of called out. How could you? Why would you? And I think they're feeling very comfortable explaining why. And I think this is a very nuanced result of the election, to which you've been so pointed to point out. There are obvious implications to human rights that are going to potentially come out of this election. And some of that's just going to have to unfold in the next 4 years, or hopefully not. Hopefully not. I'm always an optimistic person, and, we'll hope for the best.
Are there pressures placed on players not to come out and support a particular candidate? So we know the shut up and dribble, we don't want to hear from you on politics. But then you have these owners, billionaire owners, 99% white male billionaire owners, who traditionally are more Republican and are going to be more supportive of Republican candidates. We saw Mark Cuban obviously supporting Kamala Harris, but quickly, seemingly, kissing the ring to Donald Trump. These are folks who make their money, and they would probably say they benefit more under a Republican administration or under a Donald Trump administration. So what pressure is there on the players when you have these billionaire white male owners who are closely aligned with Donald Trump? And we've seen this when he was in office before. And you have these teams, particularly in football, that are like 99% black men. It's just the dichotomy, the optics on that could not be more glaring.
No, actually, in talking to some athletes, whether it's the election or not, the pressure for athletes today is coming at them from all angles, both from the pressure to perform on the court or the field, as well as social media pressure to stay engaged with their fan base, from brands wanting to continue to exploit their name, image, and likeness oftentimes. And then the pressure in this case of don't say the wrong thing, or if I don't say anything, what does that mean? And I think increasingly athletes are surrounding themselves with people that they trust and understand what's, the bigger picture for what they're trying to build, and encourage them to 100% be authentic and honest with who they are and what they do. And, it wasn't that long ago that Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee and did stand for something that he believed in, and is, in my opinion, on the other side of history, benefiting from taking his personal stand in what he thought was right for him personally. And that, I think,
you may say he's benefiting, but some would say he paid the ultimate price of being banned from the sport, and others who wanted to support him, I would suspect, were, their speech was chilled. If you saw what happened to him, there are a lot of people who I'm certain were discouraged from taking any kind of position.
Yeah, when I say benefiting, I mean, he can sleep at night knowing that he took the stand that he believed in and that was authentic to what he believed in. And I've had the privilege of talking to Colin on one occasion and gave him a tremendous amount of credit for representing what the platform of sport has as a platform for athletes to express ideas that can have societal change. That's really the decision that an athlete gets the opportunity to make, is they can make the decisions that they have on the court or field, and that can inspire a generation. They can make decisions that happen on a court or field and off that can inspire a generation in a different way. But staying true to who you are and making sure that you're not making the decision for someone else is certainly, I think, more in the front of athletes' minds than it's ever been, just simply because of the scrutiny that they are under for an inauthentic move to really, have the most unintended consequence.
But you hear a lot of athletes, some say they don't want to be role models. Like, they want to just play their sport, and they don't want the pressure of having to be perfect and, having to live a certain kind of lifestyle that would be, consistent with someone who is a positive role model. And I've heard athletes say, look, I don't study politics. I don't watch, the cable news shows. I don't read politics every day. And it's not fair for people to expect me, I've heard an athlete say this, to weigh in, in these very, very charged political waters, because if I do say something that's, quote unquote offensive to someone, or I get a fact wrong, I'm going to be canceled. The cancel culture is real. What do you say to those athletes? I
think that is a choice. That's a conscious choice for them not to say something, but it needs to be made in the context of if they've had a point of view on everything else, and now this is something they don't have a point of view on, that is something that is inauthentic to their relationship with their community. And hero worship in sports has been around since the dawn of time, or the dawn of sports, and that comes with the territory. I think increasingly athletes are more and more media trained and getting a sense of self that they are building. And so when these moments come, they have that intentional approach that has place that moment. And that's really the opportunity. And, now since, the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, some of these elite athletes are getting media trained because they're on overtime or they're playing on other leagues and have microphones in front of them.
Well, why do you think the WNBA in 2020 took such a positive stand on social justice issues, but we didn't see the male-dominated or male-run leagues do the same?
They followed, actually. They eventually did. Black Lives Matter T-shirts on sidelines in almost every sport. They followed the WNBA. And in my opinion, that's because the WNBA had courage that was way before 2020. If you look back, 2016, 2017, 2018, NECA, the president of the WNBPA, they were the players under, I feel like, her leadership and just this generation understood that their platform was to empower voices that weren't often heard. And that's kind of comes with the territory of women's sports. You have the U.S. Women's National Team and the U.S. Women's National Players Association that Round 21 has partnerships with, and the WNBA Players Association. And what's remarkable about those associations under their leadership is the intention to make change or impact through sports that has impact across multiple leagues and multiple tiers of sports. And when the Equal Pay amendment and adjustment was made for the U.S. women's national soccer team, there was a reverberation that was felt across all of the female leagues. And you see Professional Women's Hockey League coming up, you see Unrivaled, and there's just this empowering spirit that kind of comes with the territory of being a female athlete now. And the WNBA has been leading that charge for over a decade.
Yeah, when we come forward, we'll talk about transgender issues and athletes, because again, that played heavily in this election. Ads ran during the World Series and other, big sporting events, trying to send the message that if you elect Kamala Harris, you are supporting transgender athletes, boys playing women's sports. We've been seeing Colin Allred, who's a former football player, professional football player, who's running for Senate in Texas, come out and says he didn't agree with transgender girls playing sports with girls. I want to get your take on that issue when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. The election of Donald Trump means that California Democrats will not have an ally in the White House. Newly elected Congresswoman Latifah Simon, who is Black, is vowing to be a check on presidential power.
Americans are counting on all of us to deliver what's not just progressive values, American values.
She and some of her new progressive colleagues are promising to put a spotlight on issues that affect the working class. Air quality is a concern in New York City, with several fires burning in nearby New Jersey and parts of New York State. Black Mayor Eric Adams is urging those with respiratory issues to try and stay indoors. The U.S. Justice Department is suing the Mississippi State Senate, claiming a former Black staff attorney was paid half the salary of her white counterparts, violating the Civil Rights Act. And a popular fast food chain is closing many of its stores. Wendy's says 140 underperforming and outdated stores across the country will close by the end of the year. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Trouble in Southgate continues as a stalled big rig remains in the right lane. Looks like the SIG alert has dropped, but stop delays are over 50 minutes from Pico Avenue on the 710 North before Firestone Boulevard. Back in Sunland, an accident blocks the left lane with heavy delays coming from the 210 West before Sunland Boulevard. In Southgate, expect a 25-minute traffic jam from the 60 Pomona Freeway on the 710 South before Firestone Boulevard as an accident on the right shoulder. Also, stalls been cleared from Cerritos 91 East at Norwalk Boulevard with over 45 minutes running heavy from Main Street.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A troubling trend for Clippers owner Steve Ballmer and his new arena, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Since the Clippers' home opener against Phoenix on October 23rd, the Clippers have not had a sellout in their last 6 home games. Capacity for the Intuit Dome is 18,300. In the last 6 home games, the Clippers are averaging a little over 16,000 fans. Not a bad number. A lot of NBA teams would welcome that average, but Ballmer was envisioning sellout crowds every night in his $2 billion arena. With star power an issue on the Clippers roster, Ballmer may have to lower his expectations. A sellout crowd is expected tonight at Golden State for their home game against Dallas. It's the first return of Klay Thompson against his former team. Thompson, who signed with Dallas as a free agent in the summer, played 11 seasons with Golden State and helped them win 4 NBA championships. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
This season, Chevy brings classic pairings, cookies and milk, mistletoe and kisses, and your holiday plans and a new Chevy. Silverado 1500 gives you power and capability with 430 pound-feet of torque to haul your holiday tree. Equinox EV and the all-new Equinox offer award-winning quality and style to see you through the holiday season. See why Chevy makes everything better and brighter. Chevrolet, together let's drive.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
Moments like making my kids my famous meatballs mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that has spread to other parts of the body, they mean even more. I take Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for adults with HR-positive, HER2-negative MBC as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and we are talking about sports and culture, and of course, sports culture and the election. Jasmine Maeta is joining me. She's a former professional basketball player turned entrepreneur. And Jasmine, the issue of transgender athletes played heavily in this election. I'm going to read something from Representative Seth Moulton. He is a congressman from Boston. He is defending controversial remarks that he made about transgender athletes in the wake of the presidential election. President-elect Donald Trump's campaign spent millions on anti-trans political ads this fall. The Massachusetts Congressman Moulton told the New York Times after Trump's win that Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone and called for a new approach from the party on the transgender issues. He said, "I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that." He went on to say on CNN, "Look, I was just speaking authentically as a parent about one of many issues where Democrats are just out of touch with the majority of Americans. And I stand by my position, even though I may not have used exactly the right words." He said, despite the public backlash, the vast majority of feedback he's received has been incredibly supportive. He said, fellow Democrats and congressional colleagues have told him, "You're exactly right, Seth. This is our problem. We try to cancel people rather than actually have debates about issues that Americans care about." He says he stands by them because he's trying to raise the debate on a contentious issue. He had a handful of trans activists and anti-war protesters gathered outside his office on Veterans Day, and others told local media that they were outraged by his comments. So what do you make? I mean, transgender people make up probably less than 1% of this population. So transgender athletes probably make up even, less than that, obviously less than that 1%, but yet they became a central theme in the election with those millions and millions of dollars being spent by Trump. And apparently those ads, according to a lot of people, really resonated with people. What is your take on this whole transgender issue? Well, as it relates to athletes.
Yeah, this is a very, very complex and very important issue. And, as a brand that believes in inclusivity and celebrating differences, it's a crucial issue to treat with empathy and respect for all perspectives. Personally, I think everyone deserves the opportunity to participate in sports. No one is debating that, from what I can tell. And I recognize the need for fairness and competition. This feels like it's going to be a quite lengthy debate or discussion within the zeitgeist, and governing bodies will get involved, and experts will get involved, and solutions will come to light that are broad sweeping. I hope that we uphold inclusivity and fairness for all athletes, which is what we would focus on. And regardless of what happens, round 21 will foster a sense of belonging and celebrate the diversity of the entire sports community. I look behind you and see the framed magazine cover, I believe, of, with autism. And I have a niece who has autism. And these are very personal issues that, when it goes from somebody's personal lifestyle and choice to being a political debate topic, that's a very long, distant place from where it starts with people, which is very personal. And so it's hard for me to comment directly on where this will go.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you had the experience as a former professional basketball player? Now, before you were professional, you were amateur. Have you had the experience of playing with a transgender basketball player?
I've had the experience of watching and cheering for Laisha Clarendon, who was a WNBA player for 12 years, who just retired this year, who identifies as transgender and non-binary. She, he, they, right? Those are common vernaculars. Laisha chose they, and uses he, him, and has been playing in the WNBA for 12 years. She, in her transition, was the first active WNBA player to have top surgery.
So let's be clear. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Laisha. Laisha was formerly male, born as a boy.
No, born as but you asked specifically, has there been a transgender in my experience? So
Right.
No, born as a woman and uses he, him.
Oh, okay. So Laisha was born as a girl.
Yeah.
Female girl,
Yeah.
and then transitioned to a male.
Correct. But it's still, we're talking about a similar,
So where does Laisha play? Does Laisha play does she play in the WNBA or the NBA?
WNBA. I'm sharing my personal experience of someone that I've cheered for and been inspired by, who identifies as transgender. It's not the topic that the media is discussing, which is men transitioning to a woman and playing in women's leagues, but it is an experience of somebody who went through a very, in my opinion, private experience, and inspired a generation, and inspired playing at the top of their game, and has been a leader in the WNBA social justice initiatives and a passionate advocate for gender expression in sports.
Let me ask you this. When Laisha obviously started in WNBA, she went by, she identified as a lady.
I don't know actually when she started. I actually don't know the answer to that. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe, Robert, you can find that out for us. But at some point, she started identifying as male and started using pronouns he and him.
Yes.
And while doing so, she continued to play with women in the WNBA.
Correct.
And do you know, I know you don't know her whole history, but do you know, like, how was she received by players on her team and then others in the league?
I can't speak,
because we're going to call.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I know he inspired a generation simply because of the authenticity and bravery. And maybe I'm speaking personally, but we actually commemorated Laisha on a product that is still available in conjunction with other players. And to us, that was so symbolic and representative. And it's not about gender identity. It's about players in the league who have, by being great in their own way, inspired this generation to continue to be great. And I was really proud that we included, you know, a variety of players. Those who have, Sue Bird is on that ball and Laisha's on that ball.
So have you seen, Robert's giving us some history. Apparently, Laisha was drafted in 2013 and she played for the Atlanta Dream. She was named a 2017 All-Star, Connecticut Sun, New York Liberty, Minnesota Lynx. Before finishing her career with the Sparks, she helped negotiate a historic collective bargaining agreement, which included salary increases. So obviously she was very active with the WNBA beyond just playing and winning championships. She was involved in helping to get parity and negotiate better. There's no parity between what the women are paid and the men, but getting some better contracts, obviously, for WNBA players. But Laisha, as you said, started her career, and now we know, as a female in the WNBA. Have you had the experience of playing with someone, and what these ads were about a person who's born as a boy or has the biological features of a male person, and then they transition to female? And now you have perhaps the build, the height, the speed, the strength that is associated with male persons playing in a league where you have female persons who perhaps don't have the same, body type, strength, speed, agility, etc.
I have not had that experience personally. I also think when we are defining someone by their biological, I'm not qualified to speak on that. That's where I think it gets difficult as the public to weigh in on this, because it's a private situation, and then we're talking about like governance changing at league and team levels, which is something.
I guess I'm just asking you more about. Okay, I asked you, had you seen it? So
no.
Fair enough, you haven't. But where do you see sports going in that direction? More, that is your expertise. You study sports, you study their trends. So do you see the trend being with teams allowing transgender players? Say the example I gave, where somebody's born as a male person. Can you envision that person who transitions to a female being able to get drafted and have a spot on the WNBA team?
I honestly have no idea what could or would happen, but when you think back in history and how what they were born as being a limit. My family identifies as Sikh. My brother wore a turban, still does wear a turban, and wasn't allowed to play basketball. And we were born and raised in small town Oklahoma. Now that would be considered extremely racist and extremely, counter, hopefully, to how people being given access should be considered. But I don't know where this is going to end up. I certainly know that as the founder of a brand that celebrates inclusivity, we're going to be curious, and we're going to celebrate a place where everybody can come together and feel like they belong through sports in a way. Like, we don't have a play on this because we don't represent opportunities to actually get a jersey and go play. But I understand that it's a very important topic in sports and will continue to be.
So you think Representative Moulton from Massachusetts got it wrong when he said that Democrats are getting this wrong, that we're out of touch, we're out of pace with where America is on this issue, and that he worries about his little girls playing sports with someone who was born male and transitions to female? Do you think he gets it wrong, that we're not out of touch, that people who identify as Democrats like myself are not out of touch on this issue?
I think that the idea of identity and representation and participation as your authentic self is something that is a national issue that people have very personal connections to, whether they are, in today's world, Jewish, trans, Black, white. And I think singling out trans as a specific segment to limit opportunities or what was a political play. I think there's more dialogue that needs to happen regarding, is there an opportunity for transgender athletes to play in sports? that is a very specific issue that is very complex, but it was used as a chip in this election when in fact identity in general, regardless of how you identify, was an overarching theme of this election.
Before I let you go, Jasmine, tell us more about your company, how people can find you on social media, your website.
Yeah, so we are Round 21 is our Instagram, which is the way to keep the finger on the pulse of what we're doing. We just came off of an incredible LA Clippers experience, Somos Clippers representing the Hispanic and Latin community in Inglewood with the team. Round21.com very proudly is going to be releasing some new drops with Paige Beckers and the UConn women's basketball team, as well as some very exciting Black Friday new news. And so there's a little tiny be the first in the know at the bottom of our website, round21.com. And that will be the way to be first on the VIP list to know what's happening. But this year with the WNBA being able to represent all of the players, both Caitlin Clark and Asia Wilson, as well as so many others, in addition to partnerships with the NFLPA and having collectibles featuring Patrick Mahomes and some of the other players that bring us to our feet. It's just been an incredible way for fans today to have an alternative fashion sense for sports that really puts the message of the people first in formation with the teams and leagues that they love.
Well, congratulations on all the great work that you are doing, and make sure you check out Jasmine's Instagram page and her website to be in the know. Again, thank you for joining me in this hour. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Workers in California cut and polish man-made stone for countertops, showers, and more. Without proper protections, workers breathe in harmful dust from the artificial stone material, which puts them at risk of developing silicosis. California employers are required to protect their employees from harmful silica dust by providing proper equipment and training. Stop dusty and deadly practices. Learn more at worksafewithsilica.org. This is a message from Cal OSHA.
With reported hate crimes rising in recent years, California has responded through outreach efforts across state government and in collaboration with community-based organizations for the launch of CA versus Hate. This non-emergency, multilingual hate crime and incident reporting hotline provides an anonymous reporting option for victims and witnesses of hate acts reported in 15 different languages through the online portal and in over 200 languages when calling the hotline. Report anonymously by calling 833-866-4283. Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or online at any time at cavshate.org.
Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. By any other name, we demand environmental justice in 2024 and beyond. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
We are back. And before I get out of here, I just wanted to clarify something. Early in the show, I said it seemed like the Trump administration perhaps was a little bit more organized, a little bit more professional as it relates to making announcements about appointments to his cabinet. And I did not want to leave you all with the impression that I was praising Trump in any way or thought that he was making good choices. And in fact, this latest appointment just shows how dangerous Donald Trump is. And I just cannot imagine what the 75 million voters who voted for him and his incompetence were thinking. Today, Donald Trump just appointed Pete Hegseth to become the Secretary of Defense, the Defense Secretary. Now, let me tell you who Pete is. If you've not been watching Fox News, you maybe don't know Pete. But if you are a Fox News watcher, avid watcher, or maybe even an occasional watcher, you've seen Pete. So Pete Hegseth is a Fox News anchor, a host for a talk show on Fox News. Now, true enough, he did serve in the Iraq and Afghanistan war, but serving in the war as a soldier does not qualify you to lead the Department of Defense. This man, a television news anchor, is being elevated to run our Department of Defense and lead 1.3 million active duty troops. This is outrageous. Mr. Hegseth is not only outside the norm of traditional defense secretaries, this is somebody that shouldn't be anywhere near government, the levers of power for government. This man is in this job because he praised Donald Trump and he defended Trump's interactions with Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator. If you praise Donald Trump and you do it loud enough and you do it often enough, and if you do it on his favorite cable news show, i.e. Fox, you too can be a member of the Trump administration. You can be in the Situation Room. You can be in the room when decisions are made about to deploy our troops. Decisions are made about to use nuclear weapons, to engage in warfare. This man, Pete, is a co-host of Fox and Friends. He's been on television working for Fox as an anchor since 2014. So he hasn't spent the last 10 years working in any government or any military position. He has spent the last 10 years doing news coverage and praising Donald Trump. In fact, he's also the host of Fox's New Year's coverage. He's done that for years. So he's the guy that's ringing in the new year for Fox News. He's popping the bottle on New Year's Eve. Now, again, I did say the guy served in the Army. He went to Princeton. He got a master's degree from Harvard, Kennedy School of Government. So obviously he's well educated. But this guy, this Pete guy, should not be the Secretary of Defense. I mean, can you imagine senior military officials having to take orders from a man that has spent the last 10 years on television? He has no experience other than serving in the military and raising concerns about his ability, hopefully, to win Senate confirmation, even with a Republican majority in the Senate. Okay, we are not going to be able to make this stuff up, and we're going to keep reminding the 75 million voters that voted for Trump for so-called the economy, how much peril they put all of us in, the dangers that they subjected the American people to. We are in danger, people, and we are in danger because y'all voted for Donald Trump. He told you what he was going to do. He told you that this was going to be the administration about retribution and about loyalists like Stephen Miller, Stephen Banner, and now Pete from Fox News. The news dude is in charge of 1.3 active military personnel. Your sons, your daughters, your neighbors who are in the military are going to have to take orders from a man who sits around a table and spews all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of lies, all kinds of fabrications on Fox News. And we are just getting started. This is just 1 week after the election, and every single appointment that Donald Trump has announced to his cabinet makes absolutely positively no sense. But yet, 75 million people empowered him to do so. Think about that. The next voice that you hear will be Robin Ayers in the Raw Report right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
Mayor is working diligently with aldermen to find alternatives before Wednesday's special city council meeting when council members are expected to vote the tax hike down. Stocks are